of all, a brief dip into this story. Benefit cheats could be stripped of their driving licences. Convicted benefits cheats who fail to pay back the taxpayer could be stripped of their driving licences under government plans to crack down on fraud. Those who repeatedly cheat the system and have debts of £1,000 or more could be punished with a driving ban of up to 2 years. Already, fraudsters can be jailed in the most serious cases, but Work and Pensions Minister Alison McGovern said this would provide an additional tool in the box to chase repayments. Let's discuss this with Rachael Walker, Policy and Research Director at Policy in Practice. Hello, Rachel. I mean, at least it makes a change from throwing up your hands in despair and saying, I don't know what to do to get the money back.
It does. It builds on existing measures, as you've already mentioned, and it doesn't quite reach the sort of heady heights of some of the sanctions that we see, like prison. But I guess the government are trying to sort of pad out the deterrents that they've got. They're also adding things like search and seize powers for the DWP and access to bank accounts to be able to withdraw money at source if they suspect fraud has taken place.
So give an example of how this might work. Let's begin with fraud is suspected to have taken place, and then what?
I mean, at the moment, the system has, the DWP have a lot of staff investigating fraud, and they will do an investigation. They can do things like interview under caution, etc. And then, depending on the severity of the deliberate action that's been taken, or whether or not we can classify these things as terrible mistakes that people have made, it depends then as to what kind of recovery action the government might want to take. Now, in some cases, so take carers allowance, for example, it's particularly difficult to stay within the boundaries. And some people are given options to pay a penalty or risk having their cases transferred to the Crown Prosecution Service. Now, many different avenues. These new powers give the government even more avenues to take, like you said, driving licences, for example. Lots of different outcomes available.
And will there be an opportunity for people to say, please don't take my driving licence away, I need it for work. If I can't work, I can't pay, I can't earn, you'll lose even more if you stop me driving? Or is there an arena or forum for people to say that or not?
Well, I would expect there to be, yes. The full detail hasn't yet been released, and the devil is always in the detail. But yeah, and it is important to understand that there can be unintended consequences of doing something like taking a driving licence.
Exactly.
You know, it doesn't just punish the driver, it can punish the family. And in some cases, you know, when we've been claiming carers benefits, for example, it can hamper people's ability to care, to find work, to maintain their work. And driving isn't a privilege outside of inner cities. You know, it's not a luxury, it's a lifeline for people in rural communities. I would massively expect there to be some sort of mitigating factor that you could claim to not have your licence removed.
I mean, you don't think, in view of the fact that it's very likely that there will be some area in which you'll be able to say, don't take my driving licence for X, Y and Z good reason, all this really does is put an extra layer in the procedure that may just be a kind of obstacle to things and not really an enhancement.
Potentially, yes. And it's stories like this that really, so we're concentrating on the smallest, tiny 3% of the expenditure is fraudulent. The 97% we should be celebrating, where we're supporting people to not be homeless and to not starve. But yeah, what we're doing with stories like this, or with big announcements, a big crackdown on benefit fraudsters, is potentially further stigmatising and shaming people who need support from the system, fueling fears that people might fall foul of a very complex and rigid system. And eventually, you know, now we're saying, well I might lose my driving licence, putting people off getting the financial help that's theirs by right.
Thank you very much indeed, Rachael Walker there.